All right, well, here I am out in the middle of nowhere. I am on a dirt road in the middle of a vast amount of cornfields. Hope you guys are doing good. I am en route to drive to go visit my 81-year-old wonderful mother. Excited to see her. On a Saturday morning, I got up, got out of here about 7, got out of Colorado at 7:30, got a 3.5-hour drive, 4-hour drive to, especially when you got to take a detour through a dirt road like this. Anyway, wild times that we live in. And it's just bizarre. Power is always threatened by peace. And you see this time and time again. And you see how the power simply divides its enemies to fight amongst each other and not actually stay united and fight against the power. And it's wild to me. And I think this event really affected me. And whether it's, a socialist like MLK, I think he might have been more on the socialist side, or in particular, Malcolm X, or a Democrat like JFK or even RFK, or if it was somebody who considered themselves a Republican like Charlie Kirk. I don't play into all of that. I don't like politics. But politics affects us all. Or if it's Jesus Christ or Socrates. Power does not like peace. So, how do we have peace? And this is what is so disturbing about all these people with Charlie Kirk being negative. And I'm just going to be real. I have unfriended a lot of people. Not because you're not my friends, but because I believe that you are in the midst of an ethical dilemma, and I don't want to be around you until you fix that. Because life is hard enough. And so I just try to stay out of it. And sometimes to be out of it, I just got to leave the room. And if I've unfriended you, it doesn't mean I'm not your friend. It means I just can't hear your bullshit right now. Okay? And that I've done that with people on the left and the right. So don't get all twisted. Okay? Don't feel special. Politics is trash. What they've done is gamify and squelch your dissent and brought you actually to their level in this stupid power struggle. Instead of remaining an individual and having your own integrity, it's a shame to see everybody behaving in this way. It's very simple. I advocated for this when I had my own talk radio show on AM radio years ago. It's something that I've come to call mental self-defense. And I guess I'm going to have to put together a book on my thoughts to make it more succinct and hopefully useful for people. The first thing that you have to do is you have to commit to peace, because it's the right thing to do. regardless of your religious or lack of religious beliefs. Now, does that necessarily mean that you should be a victim of somebody who's not peaceful? No. I do believe you have the right to self-defense. My whole life has been dedicated to the sport of self-defense in grappling and martial arts. So 100% I believe. But I'm a pacifist that'll punch you back. Libertarians call that a non-aggression principle, meaning you won't start something but you'll end it. And I think that's just human nature. I don't think libertarians own that. I think that's a generally accepted commonsensical approach to peaceful living with people. When I was a kid, man, they used to say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Does ridicule hurt? Yeah. Like words like, yeah, I mean, can you be bullied or shouted down and things? Yeah, of course. But they're not, we need to actually be a little more clear. So the thing that troubles me about Charlie Kirk is all he did, in my mind, is advocate for his positions, which is fine. Everybody should be able to advocate for themselves and their positions. And we need to have the rules of debate, civil discourse. So this is the fundamental thing with mental self-defense. This idea that I've been talking about for years. Had a radio show, had all kinds of great guests from Chris Novoselic from Nirvana, big authors, all kinds of great people that were on my show back in the day. Thomas Zaz, oh my gosh, that was probably my personal favorite. Anyway, the first thing we have to do is have a commitment to peace. Not a commitment to everybody agree, because you will not agree. Even those people that you agree with most, you will still have something you disagree with, like chocolate is better than vanilla, or strawberry or whatever. Oh, look at this. Check these cows out. You see these cows? And I am literally in the middle of nowhere. Still on a dirt road. Anyway, commit to peace first. And then how do you actually have a debate? People have seemed to forgot basic civil discourse. The first thing you do is you have a commitment to peace, that we're going to debate these ideas and attack ideas and not the person, right? So I think you need to have an understanding of the basic informal fallacies in logic. You can Google those. Things like staying away from ad hominem attacks. Staying away from non sequiturs. Okay? What else do you need to have a civil debate? You need to define your terms. And this has been something that's been rather insidious. So, for example, when you look at Charlie Kirk, the number one thing he would ask, you always agree on terms in a debate. You notice, the root of the word war comes from the Proto-Germanic word wera, W-E-R-R-A, which means confusion. And peace. Another word for that is coming to terms. Oh, we came to terms. Means we agreed on definitions. Okay? So you got to agree. So if you'll notice, the first thing, a lot of times, Charlie Kirk or any good debater, whether they're Republican, Democrat, socialist, if they're a good debater, somebody who knows how to have a civil discussion, is they will ask you to define the terms. So Charlie would be like, can you please define what a woman means, for example? And you could just see that would just blow people's minds, because this is how our institutions of higher learning, quote unquote, I say that very charitably, because people can't even fucking pass exams anymore, even though they got a degree, but they're not educated. They're stupid. I'm just being real. And I got a master's degree, dude. It's unbelievable. And I debate with MDs and stuff, and all I do is use the rules of debate and facts and evidence. That's all you need to do. So the first thing that you see happening in these universities and in public schools is that they fuck up the definition. And he is right in that regard. And you see this, and this is not a political issue. This is basic. A woman, if you can't agree on what a woman is, you can't proceed and have a civil debate. If you can't agree on what the definition of fascism is, everybody throws these fucking terms around. And nobody knows what they're talking about. And then everybody gets in a tizzy. The point is to have a debate driven by reason and understanding and an aim to come together by the end of the conversation, not to go further apart. Why do we have sport? Why was wrestling created as a sport? So we could settle all the aggression under a set of rules. Okay, you can't poke the eyes. Wrestling's like the oldest sport. Can't bite somebody unless that's in the rules. So the first thing we do is if we can't come to terms, if we can't agree on definitions, and the beauty is, language is evolving. But no matter what happens, we have the signifier and the signified. These are terms that people on the left should hopefully understand. I have an English degree, so I don't learn all this bullshit. You have the word and the thing the word describes. That's all it is, dude. Okay? We have to agree so we can move to the next step. So the first step is understand the rules of debate. Second step in mental self-defense is to understand the informal fallacies of logic. The third step, understand the rules of evidence. What is actually a fact? What is actually evidence? So that we can say we're looking at the same thing and move to the next step in the conversation. After we've got evidence, we need to actually understand analysis. We do need to move past the informal fallacies of logic and actually into logic, rhetoric. These are all classic ideas. The trivium and quadrivium are wonderful ideas that we have abandoned when we socialized education, which has become propaganda and not actual education. The trivium, the study of reading, writing, and it's not really those 3 R's, but like the trivium, which is a threefold path, is understanding logic and rhetoric and the basics of communication. And then you can expand that into the quadrivium, which is mathematical things, scientific things, astronomy. Do you understand? So we need to also understand how to analyze using non-contradictory thinking like logic. And then beyond that, beyond deductive reasoning, which is the traditional understanding of logic, we have to understand how inductive reasoning works. Inductive reasoning is probabilistic and statistical reasoning. And we have to understand how it actually works, because a lot of you people love to appeal to authority, which is an informal fallacy, by the way, the appeal to authority. But you love to claim experts. You see this all the time. Well, you're not an expert, blah, 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 blah. Fuck you. I don't need to be an expert. I'm not going to appeal to authority. It's a very fundamental, basic flaw in reasoning, and you don't even understand it. So when you claim the science, I have a math degree. I've worked professionally as a statistician, and you want to debate with me about the science. You need to actually understand things that somebody, for example, like Dr. John Ioannidis, an epidemiologist and statistician from Stanford, when he's saying that there is a replication crisis, meaning things that are called science, especially psychology, oh my lord, which is a joke. I'm sorry if you invest a lot of money in it. I'm sorry. I invested a lot of money in financial engineering, and it's a joke, okay? Thomas Zaz invested a whole life in psychiatry and realized it was a joke, and he fought to help people. So I'm sorry you're invested, but because you're invested doesn't mean what you invested in was the right thing. So when John Ioannidis brings up the informal fallacy, or it brings up the replication crisis, he's talking about things about that are in inductive reasoning, like statistical power and how you can make sure that you aren't falling prey to type 2 errors. A lot of people focus in inductive. You don't even know what I'm talking about, 99% of you. The difference between a type 1 and a type 2 error in reasoning. And you are so serious about what you're doing without any new knowledge of what's really going on. What is propaganda? We have entire divisions of the power structure. Their whole job is to send out propaganda and disinformation. And you just gobble it up because you just have oatmeal for brains. Part of that is not your fault. Part of it is because they've poisoned you. There's fluoride in the water. We know it reduces IQ. Like this. We know that you've gone to government schools. I did. So, the replication crisis, you need to be very skeptical of science. But you have to have that. You have to look at, we have a problem with innumeracy, which is like illiteracy, but with numbers. I have an English degree and then a financial engineering degree, financial mathematics. Covered it. Kind of my own version of coming to the trivium, by luck. But remember, power, these people, what do they call it? The military industrial complex, whatever. You've been warned about it for generations now by people from Eisenhower, people on the right, the left, Kennedy. I mean, dude, Nelson Mandela. Stop being a sucker. Practice mental self-defense. Protect your individual mind. If you go to mentalselfdefense.com, I have a lot of these writings that I've written out to further explain this. This is stuff I'm going to probably put into a book to make it easier. Power is threatened by peace. You know, one of the great people I had on my show, Mental Self-Defense, was a guy considered with the old left, not these psycho people on the left now. And there's psycho people on the right. Look at this dumb shooter. Stop getting pulled into these fucking identity traps that they've set for you. But one of my heroes that I had on the show, he's passed, may he rest in peace. More cows, sorry. I always like looking at the cows. His name is Gene Sharp. Google his work. Gene Sharp showed how we can resist power peacefully. He's in the tradition of civil disobedience, of Henry David Thoreau, who inspired Gandhi, who Gandhi inspired MLK, who MLK inspired somebody like Ron Paul. You see, this doesn't have to do with left or right. Some of the people like Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, even Trump was on the left. These are meaningless. They're identity traps. You're trapped if you're in that. If you get upset because somebody wears a red hat or has blue hair, that's on you. Study mental self-defense. Push for peace, for civil disobedience, for civil discourse, for debate, for freedom of speech, for the right to self-defense, to advocate for yourself, to trade for anything that is consensual, anything that is non-violent in an aggression way. I love all you guys. Let's get it together. Let's stop being suckers. Free yourself from these identity traps. Embrace individualism. Peace.